මූඩියෙන් භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, delicate balancing act. The lockdown extended by another week as the head of state urges authorities to conjure a realistic solution to the situation. Tough choices as the WHO warns of a $2.2 billion GDP contraction from a 6-week lockdown. Economists say the benefits far outweigh the losses.
Even when the economy contracted by about 16% the second quarter of 2020, nothing really happened to agriculture and there was a certain drop in manufacturing and services. So therefore the economy always bounces back.
Smooth running. Over 36,000 COVID patients have recovered under the home treatment program, with the bulk of the subscribers being from the Western Province. No faith. S&P cuts Sri Lanka's CCC plus sovereign rating outlook to negative. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Friday, the 27th of August, 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වලකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamke Kanayaka. Now then, the Director of the Tertiary Care Services at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Ayanti Karunaratne, is upbeat that the COVID home treatment program has been a success. Speaking to media today, she said that over 36,000 COVID patients have recovered under the program so far. What's more, some 14,000 patients are currently availing the service, with over 60% of them being from the Western Province.
Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the primary and common symptoms experienced by many people infected with the virus have been a dry cough, fever, loss of smell and taste, and fatigue. However, some of these symptoms are endemic to the common cold or flu as well. So what is the difference?
සාමාන්‍ය හිම්බිරිසාවකදී ගඳ සුවඳ නොදැනීමට හේතුව ඒ අර සික්‍රීෂන්ස් ගිහිල්ලා ගඳ සුවඳ දැනන ඔල්ෆැක්ටරි ඒරියා එපිතීලියම් එකක් කියලා තියෙනවා ඒවා කවර් කරනවා ඒක නිසා මෙතෙන්දි වෙන්නේ මේ වෛරස් එකේ සෙල්ස් වලට ඇටැක් කරනවා ඒක නනහය ලං එකේ වගේම සෙල්ස් වලට ඇටැක් කරනවා මොකද මේ සෙල්ස් වල තියෙනවා අර වෛරස් එක ඇටැච් වෙන රිසෙප්ටර්ස් ACE2 රිසෙප්ටර් කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා ඒවා තියෙන හැම ටිෂු එකකටම ඇටැක් කරන්න පුළුවන් නමුත් මේක ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් රෙස්පිරේටරි දැන් මේක විශේෂයෙන් අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා ගඳ සුවඳ ඒවටත් මේ වෙනවා ඊට අමතරව හાર્ට් එකේ කිඩ්නි ඩයරියා රෝම වෙන්නේ ඒක නිසා තමයි පොඩි ළමයින්ගේ හැම ගොඩාක් සිස්ටම්ස් ඇෆෙක්ට් වෙනවා කියලා දානවා අනිත් එක තමයි එක්ස්ට්‍රීම් ඒජ් පොඩිම ළමයින්ටත් වයස මායටත් මේ ලෙඩේ හැදෙන්න මේ නියුමෝනියා තත්ත්වයට යන්න තියෙන chance එක වැඩි.
Even though some people display symptoms of COVID-19, there are many who do not and remain asymptomatic despite contracting the virus. Asymptomatic patients could spread the virus within the community and even not know about it. This poses a very high risk to the society and was very much visible during the first and second waves of the virus last year, as many patients remained asymptomatic and recovered just the same. As per experts, there is only one way to know whether you've had the virus or not.
තමන්ට past infection එකක් කලින් අපි නොදැනුවත් හැදිලා තිබුණාද කියලා දැනගන්න පුළුවන්. ඇඟේ තියෙන antibody levels වල. ඒක දවස් 14කට විතර පස්සේ අපි latest එකක් කළොත් අපිට දන්නේ නැතුව හැදුනද කියලා බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඇත්තටම එහෙම සිද්ධ වෙච්ච අවස්ථාවල් තියෙනවා. වෛද්‍යවරු ටෙස්ට් කරාම මේ වැක්සින් එක එහෙම ගන්න කලින් දන්නේම නැහැ antibody levels ඇවිල්ලා. ඒ කියන්නේ ආ දන්නේම නැතුව වැඩටත් ඇවිල්ලා කිසි දෙයක් නැහැ. ලෙඩේ හැදිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ ලොකු percentage එකක් මේ society එකේ ඉන්නවා. මේ බොහොම කොටසක් තමයි මේ නියුමෝනියා තත්ත්වයට යන්නේ. ඒ කොටස තමයි risk එකයි. අනිත් එක සමහරවිට genetic fact එකක් තියෙනවද දන්නේ නැහැ. මේ virus එක ගැන තාම හොය තියෙන්නේ. suspect කරන සමහර ethnic groups මේකට liable ද කියන එක.
In the meantime, the country confirmed 4,602 new COVID-19 infections yesterday. In the past week, the figure stayed over 4,000 continuously with the exception of the 22nd and 23rd of August, where the daily COVID caseload went past 5,000. With that being the case, the home COVID treatment program put in place to reduce the stress on the country's healthcare system looks to be achieving the intended results.
මේ අවස්ථාව වන විට 36220 දෙනෙක් රෝගීන් තමන්ගේ නිවාස වලම සිට ප්‍රතිකාර ලබාගෙන සම්පූර්ණ සුවය ලබා සිටිනවා. ඒ වගේම මේ මොහොත වෙන විට 14152ක් රෝගීන්ම සේවාව ලබා ගනිමින් තමන්ගේ නිවෙස්වල රැඳී සිටිනවා. මේ කණ්ඩායම අතරින් 68%ක ප්‍රමාණයක් බස්නාහිර පළාතේ.
Dr. Karunaratne also explained the rationale behind not conducting PCR or rapid antigen tests on home treatment patients as they are released from home care after 14 days.
ඔවුන්ගේ දින 14 කාලය නිරන්තර වෛද්‍ය පරීක්ෂණ වලට ලක් වෙමින් කරන එකක්. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒ දවස් 14 කාලය අවසන් කරාට පස්සේ අපි නිවසෙන් පිටවීමේදී එවැනි පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ඒ 14 ඇතුළත සායනිකව සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ඔවුන්ගේ සුව වෙනාද කියන එක පරීක්ෂා කරලා බලලා තමයි වෛද්‍යවරුන් විසින් තීරණය කරලා තමයි ඔවුන්ව නිදහස් කරන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඔවුන්ගේ PCR පරීක්ෂණ හෝ rapid antigen පරීක්ෂණ සිදු කරන්නේ නැහැ.
In the meantime, Director of the Health Promotion Bureau said that there are talks underway to procure self-diagnosis tests that are used in other countries.
self-diagnosis kits අනික් රටවල ජනප්‍රිය අනික් හැම රටේමත් තියෙනවා. ලංකාවෙත් සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ රසායනගාර සේවා සම්බන්ධ අංශය මගිනුත් ඇමතුමා විසිනුත් මේ පිළිබඳ සැලකිලිවත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒක අපිට ලබා ගත හැකි වේවි කියලා තමයි හිතන්නේ. අද උදේ රැස්වීමෙත් මේ ගැන කියවුණා. තවම ඒකට 100%ක්ම ලැබෙනවද නැද්ද කියලා කියන්න තාම දන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් ඒ පිළිබඳ හොයා බලනවා ලංකාවටත් ඒක ගන්න පුළුවන්ද කොහොමද ගන්න කියන එක ගැන ඒක දැනගෙන ඉස්සෙල්ලා මොකද ඒක ඉතා පහසුවක් වෙනවා ගෙදරදීම මේ පරීක්ෂණය කරගත හැකි නම්.
Meanwhile, for the first time since the pandemic broke out in the country, the daily fatalities exceeded 200 yesterday. According to data released by the epidemiology unit, 209 persons had succumbed to the virus. Among yesterday's fatalities are 163 persons aged 60 or above. The remaining 46 victims were people belonging between 30 to 59 years of age.
In the meantime, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today announced that the quarantine curfew imposed over the island will be extended until 4 a.m. on the 6th of September. The curfew was previously expected to be lifted on Monday, the 30th of this month.
The decision taken by health authorities to place the country under a quarantine curfew from Friday the 20th of August until the 30th of August was amended today. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had instructed authorities today to extend the quarantine curfew currently in effect until 4 am on the 6th of September. The decision was made during the special committee meeting on COVID-19 control, which convened under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
අපි හොයාගන්න ඕන ලොක්ඩවුන් එකක් හයිබ්‍රිඩ් ලොක්ඩවුන් ක්‍රමයක්. අපිට තියෙන්නේ එකම ප්‍රශ්නේ මෙන්න මේ කුඩා පරිමාණයේ දවස ගානේ ජීවත් වෙන පොඩි ව්‍යාපාරිකයෝ ටික දෙනෙක්. කම්කරුවට හිටන් ඩේලි වේජස් කට්ටියටත් වැඩ දුන්නා. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් ඔය මේසන්ලා
කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ෂන් ඒරියා
ඒකත් කරනවා. පාරවලුත් කරනවා. ඒක හන්ද ඒකට බලපල් නැහැ. අපිට මෙන්න මේ තියෙන ඔය මාළු කඩ, එළවලු කඩ, පොඩි ඔය ට්‍රයිෂෝ කට්ටියටත් සෑහෙන අපි මේ අවසර දීලා තියෙනවා පොඩි පොඩි ඒවට ඒ කට්ටියටත් කොහොමද
එළවලු ටික කොහොමද?
එළවලු ටික දැනට තියෙන්නේ මේ සති දවස් දෙකක් විතරක් මේ ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථාන 4ක් විතර අරින නිසා අපිට තියෙන්නේ විකිනෙන්නේ නැති ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා නම් ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම් කාර්යාලය වලට අරන් ඉවෙලා දෙන්නේ අමාත්‍යාංශයට කියලා.
දැන් අපි එන්නතේ ෆස්ට් ඩෝස් එක 100%ක්ම වගේ දීලා. දැන් සෙකන්ඩ් ඩෝස් එකෙත් අපි 156ක විතර ඉන්නවා. ඉතින් මේ 31 කනදා වෙනකොට අපිට තවත් ගාලා 185ක් විතර අපිට කරගන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම වෙලා තවත් සුමාන දෙකක් අපි දුන්නොත් ඊටත් පස්සෙත් මේක තත්ත්වයේ තියෙනවා නම් වෛද්‍ය ශාස්ත්‍රයෙන් මීට වඩා යාට ගිහිල්ලා බලන්න වෙයි කොහොමද රියලිස්ටික් විදියට මේකට මුහුණ දෙන්නේ කියන එක. ධම්මම ડોක්ටර්ස්ලා කමිටිස් අපොයින්ට් කළා එහෙම ස්ටඩි එකක් කරන්න වෙයි මොන වගේ ඒවාද කරන්න පුළුවන් කියන එක. අපි දැන් දෙවනි ඩෝස් එක ගහලා ඉවරුණයින් පස්සේ අපි ඩිසයිඩ් කරානේ 30න් 15ට දෙන්න ඕන කියලා. මෙඩිකල් පැතින් ඇනලයිස් කරලා කියන්න ඊළඟට එන ප්‍රයොරිටි එක දෙන්න ඕන 30න් 15ට ආපහු පළවෙනි සහ දෙවෙනි ඩෝස් එක දෙන එකද වැදගත් 60න් ඉහළ අයට ඉඳලා බූස්ටර් එක දෙන එකද වැදගත් කියලා.
තාම WHO එකේ නම් බූස්ටර් එක දෙන එක රෙකමන්ඩ් කළා නෑ. මේ එක එක රටවල් වල දුන්නාට. දැන් ගිය සතියේත් ඇහුවාම ඒගොල්ලෝ කිසිම විදියකින් දැනට බූස්ටර් එක දෙන්න රෙකමන්ඩ් කළා නෑ. ෆස්ට් ඇන්ඩ් සෙකන්ඩ් ඩෝසස් කම්ප්ලීට් කරනකල් above 80.
Now then, data from a projection of the economic impact of a prolonged lockdown carried out by the Imperial College London says that Sri Lanka's economy will lose upwards of $2.2 billion of its GDP or lose 10,000 people to COVID-19. With the government faced with a tough decision, economists say that the loss is particularly negligible and that it won't take long for the country's output to recover once the restrictions are lifted and full production capacities are maintained.
Right now, Sri Lanka has a very difficult choice to make. Either lock down and lose upwards of an estimated $2.22 billion if we go into a 6-week stretch until the 2nd of October, or lose 10,000 lives. This was one of the conclusions discussed during a webinar hosted by the World Health Organization yesterday, featuring some of Sri Lanka's best and brightest medical and COVID-19 experts. According to an economic projection model compiled by the Imperial College London, the hit to Sri Lanka's economy from a prolonging of the current curfew could be quite a heavy one. It says that Sri Lanka's GDP would see a 1.3% slide up to the original curfew deadline of the 30th of August, or in monetary terms, $1.12 billion. In case of a 4-week lockdown up to the 18th of September, this could increase to a 1.9% hit to the GDP, or $1.67 billion. Further, if a 6-week lockdown is imposed up to the 2nd of October, the country's economy would lose upwards of $2.2 billion. However, the move could end up saving up to 10,000 lives. Hence, the decision is a tough one for the government, as Sri Lanka right now stares down the barrel of a long drawn-out economic impact of the pandemic, with an increasing need for dollars, the need to keep the country's engine of growth running, and a tussle with the rampant Delta variant of COVID-19. Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva, however, says that human life is what must be given priority, and that the government has been left with a serious judgment call.
6-week lockdown, the cost would be about $2.2 billion. So if you work it backwards, what you're suggesting is about 40 million Sri Lankan rupees per person is the value of a life. So it is a judgment call that the government has to make. What they're looking at is, okay, the economy shuts down, production comes to not a screeching halt, because what lockdown here really means is not a complete lockdown. Factories work and others work, so there won't be a absolute halt of all economic activity. Even when the economy contracted by about 16% the second quarter of 2020, nothing really happened to agriculture, and there was a certain drop in manufacturing and services. So therefore, the economy always bounces back, because even though we haven't got the second quarter figures for 2021, I heard Minister Cabral saying they expect the second quarter figure to be real growth, to be over 10% over the previous quarter.
Meanwhile, Dr. De Silva added that the government should understand that recovering $2.2 billion in GDP is not such a tough task soon after lockdowns are lifted and production resumes.
If we continue this way without locking down, then assuming WHO knows its facts, that is estimated then at a loss of 10,000 lives. But the question then is, suppose you lock down, then we need to be able to find that additional 2.2 billion. I would think that this $2.2 billion can be quickly brought back into production once the lockdown is removed. Now, we heard today the president has decided to lock down for 7 more days. Now, I don't know how many lives would then be saved by locking it down for 1 week. Would it be 1/6 of the 10,000? I don't know. But still, by locking down, he's going to save a certain number of lives.
In the meantime, former Deputy Governor at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, W.A. Wijewardena, concurs with the Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian, saying that in comparison with the country's total output of 15 trillion rupees, the calculated loss of 750 billion rupees through the lockdown period can be considered insignificant.
Now, the cost to the economy is that we'll be losing the output by a certain percentage during this period, during which Sri Lanka would be locked down. And as a result, the total loss in the output is a minimal amount because Sri Lanka produces about, say, 15 trillion worth of goods and services. If we lock the economy down for, say, 3 weeks' time, the loss in the output would be a very insignificant amount, maybe 5% of that. So as a result, the loss may be simply maybe 750 billion worth of goods and services. So that is totally bearable compared to the value of the lives of the people. So in my opinion, the extension of the lockdown period by another week is fully justified, and probably this may be extended by another 2 weeks' time, because the whole world is now hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, and Sri Lanka has also been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. So unless we remove the fear from the minds of the people about this pandemic, the economy cannot function normally. So as a result, the first we have to attack the enemy number one, and then you'll have to attack the enemy number two.
Big 3.
Now, a further 2 million doses of the Sinopharm COVID vaccine arrived in the island today as the government aims to fully inoculate the country's entire over-30s population by mid-September. Now, as the rapid pace of vaccinations is maintained even through the lockdown, authorities say that they are waiting for a policy decision on immunizing those between 12 and 18 years of age, and the matter is very much under consideration.
So far, health authorities have inoculated 12,255,121 people with the first dose of the vaccine used in the country against COVID-19. Sri Lanka's population of persons over the age of 30 is expected to be about 11.4 million, and the target was to inoculate them before September. As things stand, that has either already happened or on the verge of happening. What's more, 6,464,296 people are fully vaccinated at the moment. Yesterday alone, health authorities carried out 384,091 vaccinations. As such, 7,085 people were inoculated with the first and second doses of the Covishield vaccine, whilst the first and second jabs of the Sinopharm vaccine were given to 278,988 people. Meanwhile, 3,020 people were recipients of the Pfizer's first dose, while 45,470 people were given its second dose. The second dose of the Moderna vaccine, meanwhile, was administered to 49,520 people, while 45,470 were given its first dose. Even though the country's inoculation drive prioritizes the over 30 population at the moment, measures have also been taken to inoculate persons below 30 as well in some categories. People below the age of 30 engaged in essential services, triforces, and the health sector will be immunized. In addition, students travelling overseas for education purposes or people below the age of 30 travelling overseas could also opt for the vaccine. And officials at the Ministry of Health have stated that the reason for the country to continue to carry out vaccinations despite inoculating the target group is because the exceptions of this priority group are also included in the official figure. As such, all inoculated persons are given a vaccine card that can be translated into a vaccine certificate if such persons ever need to do so.
වැක්සින් කාඩ් පත අපි අතින් ලියලා දෙන එකක්. නමුත් සමහර විදේශ රටවලදී සමහර රටවලදී ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉල්ලනවා ඒක විශේෂ සුරක්ෂිත ආකාරයකට එන්නත් කාඩ් පතේ තොරතුරු සහතික කරගන්නා ක්‍රමවේදයක් සහිත කාඩ් පතක් නිකුත් කරන්න කියලා. මෙන්න මේක තමයි මේ ස්මාර්ට් වැක්සින් සර්ටිෆිකේට් කියන එකේ මුද්‍රණය කරගත්ත පිටපතක්. මේකේ මූලික විස්තර තියෙනවා ඒ පුද්ගලයාගේ මොන නම වයස ඒ වගේ දේවල් ඒ වගේම ගත්ත එන්නත පිළිබඳ ඒ වගේම මෙන්න මේ කොටුව තුල තියෙනවා මේ අපි කියනවා QR කෝඩ් එකක් කියලා මේ තුල තියෙනවා මේ මෙහි තියෙන තොරතුරු විශේෂ විදිහට සුරක්ෂිත විදිහට ගබඩා කළා. එතකොට මේ වගේ කාඩ් පතකින් යාගේක බොරු කරන්න බෑ. ඒ තොරතුරු නිවැරදි බව අපිට තහවුරු කරගන්න පුළුවන් ඒ යනම ඕනෑම අවස්ථාවකදී වෙනත් රටකදී.
As the country forges ahead with its vaccine program, many expect that the under-18s too will be given the jab.
අපේ advisory committee on communicable diseases අවසර ලබා දීලා තියෙන්නේ 18ට ඉහළට එන්නත් ලබා දීමටයි. වයස අවුරුදු 12 සහ ඊට වැඩි අයට එන්නත් ලබා දිය හැකි වූ නමුත් තවමත් ඒ පිළිබඳ policy decision එකක් ලබා දීලා නැහැ. ඒ ගැන සලකා බැලෙනවා.
In the meantime, Sri Lanka will receive 2 million more Sinopharm vaccine doses tomorrow. Taking to Twitter, the Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka made these remarks and stated that this brings the overall number of Sinopharm vaccines received by Sri Lanka in the month of August to 7 million.
The World Health Organization has once more iterated that there is no risk in COVID-infected mothers nursing infants. They say that the virus cannot be transmitted to the infant by nursing. However, it is possible via other means. The Global Authority also insists that there is no change in the level of efficacy of the vaccine against COVID-19 in nursing mothers and urges immunization.
The WHO not only says it's safe to breastfeed, but it is highly encouraged that she breastfeed her baby. We know that the breast milk itself is not a means of transmission of the virus to her baby. There are also concerns about just her own care of the baby and being so close to the baby that comes from that close contact during breastfeeding. And yet what we find is that in fact the transmission risk to that baby is very, very low. And if the baby were to get infected, babies typically have very mild cases of COVID, and so it's not a significant health risk. On the other hand, we have to weigh that against the loss of the benefits of breastfeeding. It's critically important that we also continue to protect that baby from many of the other diseases that they might get if they were not breastfed. And the benefits of breastfeeding strongly outweigh the possible risks of transmission.
Although the WHO believes that the chances COVID-infected nursing mothers passing the virus over to the infant is minimal, it's not impossible. It stresses that there are certain precautions nursing COVID-infected mothers should take to ensure that the infant is safe.
We would recommend the same kinds of protections that she would have with other family members. Wearing a mask when she's around them, washing her hands frequently if she doesn't have access to safe, clean water for washing, to use alcohol-based wipes and such. And so to continue to have contact, because it's important that the baby have contact with the mother, but that she have those kinds of just basic precautions against transmission.
To vaccinate or not vaccinate against COVID-19 with respect to nursing mothers has become a long-running debate. The science in this regard, however, has been quite clear for some time, with both local and global experts urging nursing mothers and expectant mothers to opt for vaccination. So what's keeping some from obtaining the jab is mere suspicion.
So based on all the evidence that we have, it is not only safe for a breastfeeding mother to be vaccinated, but it is also highly recommended. It is important for her own health that she be protected from COVID and that she's able to take care of her family as best as possible and doesn't get too sick. There is no evidence that the vaccine would allow for the virus to be transmitted to the child, and there is no reason that the vaccine would be any less effective in a breastfeeding mother than in a non-breastfeeding mother. We would definitely recommend that she should be vaccinated as soon as the vaccine is available to her to protect her and the community around her.
In the meantime, following a series of suicide attacks outside the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul yesterday that saw scores of both locals and US military personnel dead, the situation in the country has deteriorated significantly, leaving even more uncertainty hanging over Afghan people. With that, international security specialist Professor Rohan Gunaratne warns that any recognition of a Taliban regime by the Sri Lankan government may send a dangerous signal to groups within Sri Lanka. Speaking to Indivri Amuatha on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 yesterday, Professor Gunaratne added that Sri Lanka needs to monitor the situation in Afghanistan and follow the lead of the international community.
Now, this seems to be a different approach from the Taliban side. You've moved with them, you've spoken to them. How has this changed? Have they improved themselves over the past 20 years, or is this a new strategic approach for recognition?
The government of Qatar, the government in Pakistan, they have vouched for Taliban. So in many ways, Taliban's conduct will be somewhat influenced by those countries that have worked on the Doha Agreement and of course Pakistan. So I believe it is important for the international community to watch Afghanistan very closely and see whether the Taliban can transform. So if they are going to have that 7th century Sharia law, I don't think any of that will happen. And if they are going to do amputations, beheadings and stoning, I don't think the international community will recognize them. I don't think UN will give them a seat. I don't think countries will want to have diplomatic and international relations.
Should Sri Lanka recognize the Taliban group?
Taliban did not come to power through an election. We are a democratic country, and we should not recognize any regime that has assumed power through military force. We should wait for there to be elections in Afghanistan, for an inclusive government to be formed in Afghanistan, for the UN to recognize that government in Afghanistan. And that is something that we should be very careful as a state, because it will immediately send a wrong signal both to the people of the Northeast and to the Muslim community. So it is imperative, it is essential that we wait and see what is going to happen in Afghanistan before we go to recognize new actor in Afghanistan.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, S&P Global cut Sri Lanka's CCC plus sovereign rating outlook to negative from stable today, warning the government may find it incredibly difficult to finance itself over the next 12 months. The S&P said that the negative outlook reflects its expectation that Sri Lanka's financing environment may get more difficult over the next 12 months, adding that this would affect Sri Lanka's ability to service its debt. Although the island is expecting about $800 million in infusion of newly approved IMF special drawing rights, the ratings agency says that this will not be sufficient for the government to meet upcoming maturities of more than $5 billion till the end of 2022, in a reference to bond repayments. Now, it added that likelihood that the government will post large fiscal deficits over an extended period would worsen the government's already extremely high debt stock. The S&P expect the increase in net general government debt to average 10.3% over 2021 to 2024. Meanwhile, at the Colombo Bourse, Sri Lankan shares closed at a record high today and posted their best week in 7 months as consumer stocks gained. The CSE All-Share Price Index, which rose as much as 1.78% during the session, gave up most gains to close 0.12% higher at 8,931.33 points, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks gained a marginal 28.01 points to close at 3,355.09. With that, here's Dimantha Mathi with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today also market managed to take a gain, unlike the last few days where we saw huge fluctuations in the market. Today the selling pressure was rather high, with the strong buying interest also that was there in the market. The fluctuation was much smaller than expected. So finally the market ended in the green territory, with being up by around 10 points, and the ASPI closed at 8,931 points, higher than yesterday, so which means it's a new all-time high close today as well. So with that, we are seeing the strong upward trend in the market on a continued basis.
Meanwhile, in the currency market, the selling rate of a US dollar remained at 202.89 cents, or 202 rupees and 89 cents today as well, the same level which was reported yesterday. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.